Welcome. This is going to be an analysis in three-part fifth species. It'll be most useful for counterpoint students and those interested and curious in composition. The purpose of this analysis is to become increasingly aware of these elements in your species exercises, whether it's in 2, 3, or 4 parts, and then eventually in your overall compositions. There will be more resources and a PDF linked in the description below. In getting used to the C clefs as you're working with them, you want to look often at where the C line is, right in the middle of the clef. As you can see here in the soprano, in the alto, and the tenor clefs. You would continue counting your notes up or down as you need to. And as you can see, just like this, you would want to write the notes down on the paper, and so you know exactly where they are. Even if you compose mainly on the computer, it's still a pretty good idea to write these out on paper as you get used to them. Okay, here we are. We're going to start off by marking the waves in the melody, starting with the alto, which is the cantus firmus, and I see 2 waves here. These are somewhat subjective. Doesn't mean there has to be only 2 waves. The point is we want to become aware of them and aware of the structure. And in the tenor counterpoint, I see a starting wave there, and this wave here that goes down to here, and then a final wave here. And you will note that sometimes, or often, the waves are separated by leaps, such as right here, here, and here. Now in the bass, I see this wave here, and after the leap I see this here. I think this kind of continues like this, and it'll make more sense also as you hear it. We will hear it shortly after putting in a few marks. So those are the waves. Now we'll take a look at the high points. In the alto, we have the A here at the top, in the cantus firmus. In the tenor counterpoint, the E here. And in the bass, we have a G here. Next, we will mark the leaps. Starting here, this first move from C to E, going upwards. And from A down to D, we'll mark the compensation shortly after. In the tenor, there is from B to D, and here from A to D. And in the bass, there is the baby cambiata going down from B to G from the second note of the cambiata, and then from this bigger leap here from A to F. Then we have a down-up situation from E to C as a leap, and then another leap in the opposite direction from C to G. Then we have the composite leap here, which starts from F down to D, and from D down to A. And then we have the back and forth of C, G, C at the cadence. Now we'll take a look at the compensation for these leaps. From C to E, going up, it goes down to D. From A to D, going down, it goes up to E. In the tenor, from B to D, this is a suspension, which we'll get into more later. It goes down to C. And from A to D, here, which is also suspension, it goes down to D, down from D to C again. In the bass, starting with the cambiata, it goes from the G to up to the A. And after the A to the F here, it goes from F to E. The E to C going down is compensated for in the other direction with the C to G leap. And that leap is compensated for going down to the F afterwards as a suspension as well. Then there is the composite leap from F down to D and D down to A, and the A gets compensated for going upwards to B. And then the last C to G is compensated for in the cadence by jumping back to C. Now I want you to take mental note of all the elements we marked down as we listen to each melody line independently, starting with the cantus firmus in the alto. Now the tenor counterpoint. And the bass counterpoint. We move on now to the dissonances, starting in the tenor. And we will note here that this D is dissonant against the A and the E as well above it, which goes down to C. So this is a suspension. It's prepared here and it resolves down to C. So a suspension doesn't need two dissonances. This just so happens to be the case here. There will be further markings in the PDF attached for preparation, suspension, and resolution. Not all auxiliary tones are necessarily dissonant, but this one here is. And here we have a passing tone, the B. And we have another suspension, the A is a bumper for the D. And it again with the E above it, so it's very similar. And it resolves down to C. And then we have the final ornamental dissonant suspension in the tenor and resolution to B. So it is the C, which is dissonant against the G, a fourth below, and the D a second above. And we don't want to actually forget about the ornament, the A, which is an auxiliary tone. Now here we have the second note of the cambiata, which is a special kind of dissonance as it leaps down. And a passing tone here, the A, and an auxiliary tone. And moving on, we have the G here, which is suspended against the A above in the alto. It is also dissonant against the C, but that wouldn't make it necessarily a legitimate suspension because it is a fourth above, and because the suspension here is below, it wants to go down to an imperfect consonance, not a perfect one. So the legitimacy is the G and the A, which goes to F, which is a second going to a third. And finally, we have another passing tone here. We'll quickly note the bumpers, which force the suspended note down. We're going to quickly analyze the cadence. So we have a G in the penultimate chord, the G in the bass. The C in the tenor goes down to B from the suspension, and the D above in the alto. So we have G going into the last chord, which is C, C, C. Well, it's not exactly a chord, but a unison and octave on C. You get the idea. Now we can take a listen to the entire piece, taking note of the dissonances, the suspensions, and the cadence at the end. We've come to the end of our analysis. I hope you found that insightful if you're a Counterpoint student or just curious about the study. So please like and subscribe if you're interested in the much more musical material that's to come. Cheers.